Hi guys, it's Alston. In this video, we are going to learn about Jarvis AI's boss mode feature, which is also previously known as conversion AI long range, but they have made some serious adjustments to that. So I wanted to create a single video where I showcase my workflow and 20 different factors that you need to be aware in order to get the maximum out of it. Just to give you some background context where the boss mode is really new, how I come up with these 20 different factors. Because Jarvis was not my favorite content generation writing tool. I'm personally a user from Shortly AI, but since it's recently acquired Shortly AI and they have integrated most of its features within the boss mode itself, now it is much more effective, much more versatile in features. So I tried all my work through and different factors I use within my Shortly inside Jarvis, and everything worked perfectly. So what I thought of doing it, I thought of listing out all the 20 different important points, at least from my experience, in one single video. I will be mentioning jump points within the video. So if you are pressed for time and if you are interested in only in specific section, you can jump out and watch that. But I highly recommend you guys, if you are planning to use Jarvis boss mode for the full potential of it, or if you are a beginner and you are looking for some way to become an expert with Jarvis boss writing, at least watch this video one time fully so you will get the maximum impact of it. Okay, and also I will leave the link for the Jarvis, both referral and non-referral link. You can choose whichever the link you want if you are interested in this. But if you decide to choose a referral link, I will get a small commission which will help me to create more videos like this. Okay, without further ado, let me directly jump into Jarvis. This is the Jarvis. In this video, I'm not going to focus on their templates or their power pack or nothing like that. I'll try to create a separate video since you guys have asked me to cover those as well. But for me, the power of Jarvis conversion AI lies within their long form article generation or boss mode. So that is what I'm going to showcase here. To get started, you just create something from scratch. Once you come to this, you will be having a blank canvas. There is no much option. Will be the struggling point for most user because they don't understand what to do next. How should I go about figuring it out? That is why I am creating this structure. First, think of Jarvis, this boss mode, as your personal assistant. That is the first important factor, where you can see there is no traditional way of generating AI content. There is no, for example, if I open up the power mode, there is input field, there is product description, I tone of voice, all the different fields and sections, which is good to get a context based product input output. But it is so restrictive, it is a traditional way which makes the process much more rigid. What is different from that mode to this is where you don't see any inputs, where you are openly having an open canvas, which means the flexibility is much more higher and it can adaptively adapt to your writing preferences. For example, let me also show this. If I go into this, Jarvis is just like a personal assistant with few controls you give to a person. For example, there are several controls. I will explain each of this when I go and explain each of those functionalities. But basically, you can ask Jarvis to write something for you, like asking a person like write me a few blog suggestion, give me some ideas, suggest me some answers. So you're just like talking to a person. There is no fixed word like you need to use this type of command with this exact words, these order, just like a talking to a general person. And you use various commands that were like this to interact with Jarvis, because it is severely depending on the adaptability, and it's always try to be flexible as possible. So just remember, there is no rigid approach, traditional approach. Everything works like an adaptive way, and you just ask Jarvis like a personal assistant often when you are planning to write a blog post with it. The second one, now I will be going through more practical ways. First, let's see how we can use this to start creating content right now. For example, the first thing you need to fill out before start anything writing on this side is obviously we need to fill out and understand the importance of all the different functionalities available on the left screen, which starts with title. Let's see whether, for example, there are two ways to do this. If you already have a plan on what to write, you can essentially copy paste that title. Like if you have access to BuzzSumo, Ahref, or you're doing competitor analysis, you know what to write, then you can possibly use that itself. But with Jarvis also you can generate headlines. For example, I'm coming into this section. You can see now how I'm going to give the instruction like I'm asking with the personal assistant. For example, write me some blog post ideas for weight loss, where this does not need to be exactly these words. I can say suggest me some blog post idea, give me some headlines, write some headlines for blog post, or just you can just see the logical flow. It just Jarvis need to understand the concept or the context behind that question. That is all you need to understand. For example, I'm write some blog post ideas for weight loss. Let's see whether it can come up with anything. And I'm just pressed control enter for making sure that, for example, this is coming with different ideas, blog post ideas for me. I'm going to make it bit more specific. For example, I made it weight loss. Let's say, for example, write some blog post. I don't want idea, but headlines for weight loss and diet. Let's see whether it can come up with anything. And I'm just again going to press Control and Enter, where I'm saying that only focus on this context and give me some suggestion. For example, I'm coming with this weight loss method I use for well balance, how to create. Let's say, for example, I don't like this. I can use this to make it regenerate some more ideas. How to lose weight in 3 weeks with this diet. So you get the idea. For example, I can give something like suggest me headlines for dieting. So you can get just I'm asking to a person. Let's see whether it can bring up something different. So that is how you can ask it directly, and it will start giving you a more example. So you can see difference are coming here. For example, in this case, let's say, for example, this is works for me, how to lose weight in 3 weeks. That sounds good for me. So I'm just going to make this as the title. So you can go as specific as you want, and you can use Jarvis to generate headlines for your blog post. Or even if you don't have any idea on what to write, just use Jarvis and enter your main keyword, and it will give you more suggestions towards it. And also you can also ask not only just general headlines. Let's say, for example, generate me some questions, because questions also really good when it comes to headline. For example, generate me some questions on how to lose weight in 3 weeks, and or just don't giving the focus too often, lose weight. And this way also it can generate question types of headline, where you can use this also within your article. For example, you can see it automatically generating great article suggestions. For example, how much weight you can lose in a month, will losing weight make you throw up, what is the best way to lose 10 pound fast. This is a really good one. So you can get the idea. You can just brainstorm topical ideas with Jarvis itself. So I'm going to do this, how to lose weight in 3 weeks, and I'm going to make it a bit more challenging. For example, 10 tips on how to lose weight in 3 weeks. So I'm making the Jarvis to say that I specifically want 10 tips to cover within this. So I giving the instructions to Jarvis. Just for the sake of it, to keep it simple, I'll do it 5. The next one now we need to focus as to, before going into this, there is another factor which you need to understand, which is context. What do I mean by that? Jarvis is a different, boss mode is different compared to this traditional power mode where it's just focusing on one tool feature. What happens is in Jarvis is that when you start writing something, it will take every single information which is available on all the left sidebar, and also whatever you have written so far here, and also whatever you have highlighted, everything will be taken into context into generating something for me. For example, I'm just keeping my cursor. I haven't provided any input at all. I have just made sure to enter the title only. And if I click on compose now Jarvis will, what it will do is it will take this as the input, and since it does not have any input here, it's tried to generate some content based on that. This is not great right now because I haven't given any focus. I haven't structured the article. That's why you're seeing some random text. But what Jarvis is trying to do at the back end is trying to use this and this text to generate this text. Let me do this. Now if I bring this and place the cursor here, what now I am suggesting Jarvis to do is write me more text, taking everything which is already available on this current layout. For example, these text will be taken into consideration, and also this text will also be taken into consideration. So when I press compose now, not only this text is taken into consideration, but it takes these texts, and you can see the flow. For example, this section which it generated as the 1.1 subheading, and you can automatically see it trying to suggest me another one in a similar context, so it can understand the flow and keep going into it. For example, if I press compose again, now it will take this text and the second text it generated, and it goes above beyond that. That is what you need to be understood by context. Whenever you write something, and it will take those also into context into generating. That is what it means by when you go into Jarvis's sales page and you see a character look back. So whenever we generate something, Jarvis not only uses that single instruction, we can do if we want. For example, rather than just pressing compose, I can give a focus like write me some headlines on weight loss. In this case, I'm just going to focus Jarvis to give me, don't look into other stuff, just give me specific. In that case, rather than writing compose, what I will do is control enter, like from the instructions here, or command enter if you are from Mac. And if I press that, what now it does only take this instructions and try to bring up a content ideas for that, because you can see it has broken completely out of the flow and start generating something else. So you can do context just from single line, or just taking everything from the top and trying to generate more content from it. And also another important tip you can use, which is mentioned in the pro tip, this three asterisks, which you can use it. For example, I'm writing something, I want to make Jarvis to take context from whatever the thing I have written, but I don't want it takes too much of context from above. For example, I want to generate more text, but I don't want to Jarvis to look up this any text about this space. In that case, I can do three asterisks if I can figure out where is the asterisk. And now I'm essentially saying Jarvis, don't look into any text about these asterisks, only keep the context from here. For example, if I now generate compose, it takes this side of text and it does not take any text which is available here, and only focuses generate more content based on this. So the context part you need to really understand. You can use all the text, or you can use only lines to get a specific focused content, or you can use these asterisks in order to make a better suggestion. And finally, you can use header. For example, this a double one where you can make this as header different types, and you can get suggestion based on that topic for more prominently. So that is what you need to understand from context aspect of it. Now let me delete all these things since I have explained to that. The next step which we are going to focus is called content brief. Content brief is really important because we are essentially saying to Jarvis that we are going to write about this. So make sure you focus on this topic area, like topic idea or topic focus. So how can we do? First, we have around 600 words which we can enter into this content, which is a lot where you can use will create really good content brief. You can include secondary keyword in a logical section, LSI keyword, questions which you want to focus. Try to use it the maximum potential. Don't keyword stuff it. Try to create simple and small sentences which will help you to write better article. What if, let's say for example, you don't want to write content description on yourself, you want Jarvis to suggest you a content brief? That is also a possibility. What you need to do is come here, and I'm going to give a command here, write me and content brief for, and I'm just going to give the title itself. There are two ways you can do this. One, if I make this as title h1, and I can give another type of command like write me, and I don't need to mention me. I feel like I'm talking to a person. That is what you can do with Jarvis. It does not take all those things. It just try to understand the context. Write a content brief for about text. What I can do is I can run this command too, where if I run this command, I'm just saying go look the about text, which is the h1 heading, and try to generate some content brief for that text. Or I can directly ask Jarvis, I don't want you to look into any of this. Just write me a content brief for this text which I mentioned. You can use both. Let me see whether I can show both of you guys for that. First, I'm just going to run this command. I have pressed Control Enter in Windows, and you can see automatically it starts to generate me a content brief for what I want to write. For example, let me read. Write an article about how you can lose weight in 3 weeks with the help of 5 tips. This is what is important. I mentioned 5 tips specifically in order to stay context, and Jarvis is able to understand that. That's why it mentioned 5 tips. You should start by knowing your goal weight, calculating your BMI to find out where you are right now. There you should start tracking calories, using food, and it just goes and give me a great idea on what to write. So I can use this as content brief itself directly, which is really good. Now let me show this also work. For example, in this case, I'm going to do select, and rather than looking into the context, I just want to get output from this. And you can see automatically Jarvis understand that even though both of these commands are different, one is based on context, another one is based on one single line, it generates a content brief based on that too. So you can just vary it up. You can use different ones until you find something relevant for you. In this case, I have got a great content brief right now. Now let us move into the next one, which is keyword. Obviously, I don't personally use Jarvis to generate me keywords. I'm not sure whether you can do it or not. Basically, I use separate SEO tools. I have my favorite SEO keyword tools, and I use that to identify main keyword and as well as secondary keywords. That is what I personally will suggest you to do it here also. But you can get keywords idea based on the title it generates or content grade. For example, one keyword could be possibly something like lose weight in 3 weeks or lose weight in general. I like to keep one keyword as just a overall keyword, even if you can't rank for it, because it helps you to define context within Jarvis, so it can generate better content suggestions for you. Now I will do one more. So I like to use three keywords as much as possible. For example, how to lose weight. Let me put something like that. I like to use all three. I like to use basically all this functionality for its fullest to get the maximum potential out of it. So that is how we fill keywords also. The next important element you need to be aware is that output length. What do I mean by output length is, it is the control we are giving to the Jarvis when generating content, what kind of restriction you want to place on Jarvis. For example, small means we just want to give it a small control and keep it on a tighter leash and generate something very specific and stop. When we see medium, it generally means we are easing the controls a bit. We are giving some freedom for it to go beyond and try it out, but limit the length in one paragraph also. Longer means that we are giving full total creative artistic freedom for Jarvis. I just will give you a control. You go wherever you want based on your preference and use it. Obviously, most will think longer is better, right? But it depends. For example, longer it will be really good if you don't have any idea, you don't have any clue on this section, but just want to figure out and see any potential, then I would suggest long. I use a lot of time small when I want to keep the Javas focused on certain context or certain way of completing my thought. Another feature which I will show on the later side of this video, where this controls varies a lot and there is no fixed good or not. This comes from the experience. So what I would suggest you is, if you want to give Jarvis full freedom and you don't mind Jarvis to go anywhere it want under that topic area, go with long. If you want to keep the Jarvis on tight leash and provide specific and focused content suggestion, keep it on small. If you're looking for something in the middle, just middle. And also you can change it up on while writing. This is not fact like if you choose medium, the whole article it needs to be on medium. It's not like that. You can, whenever you start creating it, you obviously can change it up, mix it up to find your ideal spot. In this case, just to show you the full potential, I'm going to keep it as longer in this case. The next one you need to understand is that these two buttons, which I have already explained, but I'll show you. First, compose. Compose means when you keep a cursor here and press compose, it will take all the inputs here and all the inputs we have so far written in this article, and it will compose more text based on those. And if you have any text below the cursor area, then those text does not matter to the compose. It will only take text here at above. If you didn't use this, as I mentioned in context, then it will use the compose to generate. And the undo button will be useful for most. For example, you run a command like I remove the heading also, like you run a command like write me some headlines to lose weight, and you run this command. And what happens with this button is, let's say for example some reason you didn't like the output it generated. I personally got used to using Ctrl+Z and go back and changing it, but Jarvis has made that much more easy, where you press on this and it will erase all the output and it will try to bring up a much better one for you to use. For example, a couple of different, it copied the H1 style as well. So that is how you use both compose and undo button into this. Now let's say come back into the more conceptual stuff. For example, we looked at the element. Now let's see how we go about writing. First, we'll see how we can use Jarvis to write an introduction for our blog post we are going to write. For example, 5 tips to lose weight in 3 weeks. That is the article we are going. Again, we can use a command like write an introduction for about text. I can just say I can use the context of Jarvis rather than giving the title here. I can say Jarvis, just give me a introduction for this title. So it will see about text, which is a one, and it will try to generate me an introduction based on that. Let's see whether this works. I'm going to run control on this and see. Weight loss is often a difficult goal to achieve. Losing weight in 3 weeks is even more so. This is really looking really good. The key, however, lies not only in what you do, but how you do it. This is also sounds really good. There are many ways to lose weight. The right combination depend on your personality and lifestyle. You can pick from any of the following 6 and match it. So this things is not good, but the introduction which it suggested, it was good, but I don't necessarily need to depend on it. I can simply use the undo to give me a different one. Let's see, I'm going to do it another one. Write me intro for, and this time I'm just going to keep this. So I'm showing that there are 2 ways you can actually do it. You just don't need to use the context and see it from above, and you can see this is not that great. Like me introduction and paragraph. Let's see, and hopefully I can pronounce it correctly and do that, and now it will try to do based on that. You have been seeing adverts on the weight loss program that promised you lose 10 pounds in a week. That sound great until you realize they are only giving temporary fix. Achieving long term, so it gives me a different suggestion, completely different from here. So you try it out different ways until you find a perfect intro for your article in this case. The next element is something called PASS, which is a marketing concept we use. Like PASS stands for pain, agitate and solve, where we are highlighting a pain for our readers or audience, and we are agitating on showing what is the risk, what are kind of the important one, and finally we will be giving solution. Why I like to use this when I create my intro is it gives me some various ideal stuff which I can mention in intro as a hook for my article to make the audience stay interested in whatever the content which I'm going to write. How can I use it? Let me show you. Write me so I just can just say write PASS for, and let me give the title itself. And this is simple. So I'm asking Jarvis to write me a PASS. It should bring up 3 different factors. Let me wait for it to finish, and it just keeps on going. It problem: losing weight can be a difficult goal to achieve, which we mentioned as been seen from here. It gives me a pain point. This is especially true if you are looking to lose weight in 3 weeks. The key, however, lies not only what you do, but how you do it. There are many ways to lose weight. There are combination depends on your personality. For example, this section I really liked compared to this. Like this gives more agitation, for example. So in this case, I'm going to replace this with that, and I'm going to remove this, and let's see the solution. Here are the 5 tips. For example, here it just mentioned the basic stuff, but here it's much more focused, and in this case I'm just going to use this. So that is the reason I really like to use PASS, because it helps me to get few more ideal points which I can essentially use within the introduction. And obviously you can use this PASS and everything for inside your sales copy if you are writing that also. The next one is also another sales technique we like to use, something called AIDA, which stands for attention, interest, desire, action. This is also something similar to the PASS which I mentioned. Let me show you what it brings up. For example, write AIDA for, and I'm going to give this title, and I'm going to press enter. Now it will bring four different factors hopefully, and will give something on this. For example, I didn't really like this way. Let's see whether it can bring up since I mentioned 5 tips, it specifically tried to give me 5 tips. So you can see it tries to understand the concept. Let us see whether the undo button works in this case. And attention ATT gone away this way. But basically, have you been struggling to lose weight? So this is really good for me to get the attention of the user. Compared to this, you can see, so it just bringing up more great suggestion which I can keep on improving my content. Interest, we know that losing weight can be hard, especially if you are trying to do it in 3 weeks, but key is not. And desire shows the goal, like what is the final outcome. These tips have helped people like you to lose weight quickly and easily could get back track with their life. So it gives us the user a desire to read this article, a like a additional point to make sure they read it, because it is helped so many. You find everything from diet plan, exercise routine, best of all this show, but I really like this section here. So what I will do is I will add that also within this intro. Now we have used pass, AIDA and intro to create a solid introduction for the article we are going to write. For example, now if we read, have you been struggling to lose weight? This is especially true if you are trying to lose weight in 3 weeks. The key, however, lies not only in what you do, but when and how you do it. These tips have helped people like you to lose weight quickly and easily so they could get back on their track with their lives. Here are 5 quick tips for losing weight fast that will work for anyone who's looking to quick wins without sacrificing their health and sanity. You can see how good an introduction I was able to make even as I recording this video. So that is how you use Jarvis to write introduction with using pass and AIDA also. Now let us take into the next section of the article, which is outline, where we basically going to structure our entire article. This also can be done in 2 ways. One within Jarvis if you prefer that, but in case if you prefer to use external content curation tools such as Phrase, MarketMuse, Outranking, there are tons of it. So if you use those tools where it will analyze based on the market, AI and also competitors to give all the subsection you want to focus, you just copy paste whatever the outline you prepared from them and paste it here, and that way you don't need to use outline within Jarvis. But if you want to use Jarvis with outline, that is also a possibility. For example, I want 5 tips to lose weight in 3 weeks. Let me ask Jarvis and see whether it can bring up. For example, write an outline for, and I'm just going to give the title here. So I'm going to ask Jarvis, I don't have any clue on what to write. Let's see whether you can come up with any outline for me to write about it. Let's see. It brings up 5 different one: diet, exercise, take supplement, drink water, do not skip meals or snacks. This is really good. But let's say, for example, I want to see whether it can come up with something else. I just press the undo button and it brings up much better result for me. For example, eat healthy breakfast. This is the first one. Sorry, I skipped it. And it just brings up, like, the next section I should talk about: drink plenty of water throughout the day, cut out the sugar, other healthy food from your diet for 3 weeks. Again, a good one. Exercise regularly, at least 30 minutes a day. Take care of that. These are perfect for my example. So that is how simple you can use Jarvis to ask it to come up with outline. Obviously, you need to fact check it. For example, I know it from personal experience. These are good factors. But if you are a freelance writer, you are asking Jarvis to come up outline, factual data, information. Always go back and make sure, if you don't have experience with that niche, make sure whatever Jarvis comes up with, it's actually true. Most of the time it is true, but it does not hurt you to make sure that it's factually correct also. So in this case, I have my 5 different outlines which I did. So I'm going to make all this as H2 because I want to write more contents within this, and I have created a successful outline for whatever the contents I'm going to be writing for this article. The next one is something called free flow, where if I go down, now I want to write something for this section, but I know eat a healthy breakfast is really good, but I don't know where to start, what to write, something like the writer's block. In that case, I have this left side fully filled up. I have all the context I have given. Now I can see whether Jarvis can understand this and bring out some context for me using the free flow, where I am not giving any instructions for Jarvis. I'm just placing my cursor below the subheading and I'm asking Jarvis, let's see whether you can bring up something interesting for me. For example, this made some wrong. It's a myth that you can skip breakfast because it will kickstart your metabolism for the day. In reality, skipping breakfast sets you up for an unhealthy blood sugar roller coaster ride with headaches and overreacting at lunch. This is perfect in this case. And instead of skipping breakfast entirely, try eating boiled eggs with every morning, and it just goes. And this studies also suggest it goes beyond that. Let's say, for example, I am happy with this, and you can see I have given some freedom for it, and it goes and try to bring more content. Now let me show you with another example also. Now I'm going down and I want to write something on weight loss with importance of water. I don't know what to write on this case. In that case, I'm going to give Jarvis full control since I kept it on longer. If I change this, the output also will be smaller. And I'm going to press compose. Let's see what it can bring up for this. Drink at least 8 glasses of water per day. Keep your body from starting from. Track your calorie at going. Let me do a refresh and see whether I can get a better output than that. This seems much better. For example, drinking water helps a lot in losing weight. In addition, it boosts your metabolism and reduces the water retention, so you lose weight quickly. But though, if you are trying to lose weight, then focus on drinking half a gallon of water. Not good, bad, but it's still okay. I can improve it further when I show other commands which I probably use. I'm just in this case, I'm just going to format this for clear understanding rather than, I really don't like to see blocks of text. It affects readability. So I'll try to skip and make this much more readable. And I just can keep on using the free flow from any sections to generate more content based on that context. For example, I can go down to the third one, I can press compose again, and obviously it will try to understand all the text above and the context with H2 and try to bring more. For example, sugar is an easy way to gain weight, can prevent you from losing weight by slowing your metabolism down and making you store fat rather than burn it off. These are perfect. For example, I don't need this. It's try to follow the, for example, we mentioned 3 dots specifically, so it tried to, since I have given the long, it tries to go beyond that and try to suggest more options also. For example, I can ideally make another section with this like 6. For example, this is actually a good follow workout plan for, so I can just make it like 6, not here. I can make this as a separate subheading, and I can keep that also as a good example. In this case, for example, I can make this as H2. So that is how you can keep using Jarvis Boss Mode to generate more content from free flow, and also you can use create more different, get an idea, get more suggestion based on how much output length you want to keep Jarvis's on. So that is the 3 points, and I am pretty much creating a great article with this. Now let's see a different factor called completing your thought. This I use it a lot, and one of my most favorite when it comes to long form, where ideally there are reasons where I like to use free flow to go anywhere and try to generate me some content. But sometimes in the article, I will have a thought or a keyword, and I don't want Jarvis to go and generate any content, but I only want Jarvis to make sure that it creates or generate content based on what I'm giving to it, and I want to keep that in the focus. So that is what I call by completing my thought. How I use it, for example, in this case, let's see what can for example this, um, let's say for example, it talks about metabolism, reduce water retention. Now I also want to inform the user on what is metabolism, so I give more control. So if I just press compose, I'm not giving any instructions to Jarvis, and I'm just asking Jarvis to write something for me, but I can essentially make Jarvis to understand what I want to write about. For example, uh, metabolism means, and I let's see whether Jarvis can. For example, I'm starting a thought, metabolism means, and let's see whether Jarvis can finish that, and I can adjust the control. I don't want to give full freedom in this case. Let's see, I keep it on medium, and when I do that, it will take this into the context and it finishes that thought to me. For example, metabolism mean how quickly your body can burn calories. So if you want to lose weight, so you can understand it's try to do fulfill that. For example, let me do another one. Metabolism uh, definition is, and I'm expecting it to write a definition some sort of for metabolism. Let's see, and I'm keeping on medium. Definition is the chemical process that occur in body to keep it alive. So you can understand, see that Jarvis actually tries to understand that whatever I want to have an idea and tries to complete. For example, let me try to do something else. Metabolism is, if I can pronounce it correctly, spell it correctly, is also important to keep a healthy life, because, and you can see I have started a thought that I want to write something about metabolism and keeping a healthy life, and let's see whether Jarvis can understand that and bring. In this case, I'm just going to keep it small. I already have enough content within this section. I want to keep Jarvis super focused on that. So let's see, let me remove this also and keep it tight. Let me remove these things, unnecessary one, and keep it, and let's see whether it can finish that thought as well. For example, metabolism is also important to keep a healthy life because it regulates amount of nutrients in body. So that is what finishing your thought means, where you don't give total control to Jarvis. You focus on, for example, sugar is a easy way to gain a weight. Well, now what we do is we have a thought like sugar is bad for your health because, and now I'm giving some context. I have the thought, I'm using Jarvis to complete that sentence or thought or factor. So because it brings up more, it helps us to focus on the secondary keywords we want to use. It helps to focus on the topic subsection we want. For example, it says sugar is bad for your health because it has no nutritional value. So it gives me a suggestion. So that is how you use Jarvis to finish your thought, and this will be really helpful. You can use for because, since, just any sections where you start and you give some control with the Jarvis with the context, and it will go out and try to complete your thought on that. So that is how you use complete your thought section. The next one is also one of my favorite, which is questions, where I don't think I need to emphasize the important, but just to give you some brief, questions are really great. There are two important sections for questions. One, from the user point of view, where questions are great for identifying pain points of the user, where we can see whether the questions we are generating, if a person types in a question, he knows exactly what he wants and he knows the answers he is going to get. The intent is super focused. So questions is great for understanding your pain points of your audience. You can include it as subsections within your article. You can create a fake frequently asked section and list all these questions. And also from user Google or search engine point of view, questions are really great. The reasons are: one, people also are section where Google will try to extract questions and try to put their in their prominently in their people also are snippets. They also good for ranking on featured snippets. And more importantly, most of the time questions are long in nature, which means they are very good long tail keyword, and most people will directly type questions into search engine. So most of the time this will be really good to attract more from the more users from the search engine. And also competition also generally will be less for question keywords compared to some 3 or 4 word keywords, because it is long in nature, the intent is clear. That is the importance of question. Now let's see how we can use Jarvis to generate this type of question. There are a couple of ways I personally use Jarvis to generate question. For example, first, I am writing some articles. I'm not sure which question should I focus. I don't have any idea. In that case, what I do is I set up Jarvis in long mode, and I let me like us asking a person like write me if I can spell it correctly, write me questions on about text. In this case, I don't have any idea, so I'm asking Jarvis, write me questions. So let me see whether I can specifically give a number. Write me 5 questions from about text. I'm giving this context. I'm giving all the context which I've written so far and asking to Jarvis to read through that and see whether it can come up with any questions. Let's see, hopefully it works. And now I have clicked on Control Enter, and you can see it starts generating questions for me. Let's see whether that is relevant. It's talking about 5 tips on how to lose weight. We are talking about food, exercise, sleep, water, and breakfast. And let's see the questions. What should you eat for breakfast? Super relevant. Why it is important to drink plenty of water throughout the day. Another point we talked in this article. How does sugar affect your weight loss? Another point we talked in the article. What are the natural alternative to unhealthy food that can help you weight loss in 3 weeks? Super relevant. And also you can see it. Try to focus on the keyword which I mentioned. That is the good thing, where you try to insert relevant keyword. It is really good for SEO optimization. And how much sleep do I need, and how does it affect my weight loss goals? So you can see, just from asking Jarvis to generate 5, I specifically asked Jarvis to write me 5 different questions, and it wrote me 5 different questions for it. And also I'm not just restricted to that. I can take this one step forward, and let's say in this case, I want to write some questions under the healthy breakfast. For example, I can say write 3 questions on why it's important to have healthy breakfast. Let's see whether it works. And this time I don't want Jarvis to focus on exercise, sleeping, all the other stuff. I just want Jarvis to generate me questions on why it is important to have healthy breakfast. Let's see whether it can come up with this. Obviously I don't have any idea right now. You can see now it generated me 3 questions. Let's see this question context. You can see this question talked about all the different sections within this article. But if I go into these questions, I specifically tried with breakfast. What is the myth about skipping breakfast and why it is not true? What are the some healthy breakfast that you can be eaten to start your day. Why it is important to eat breakfast and what can happen if you don't have a breakfast? You can see the context. It not necessarily need to be general. Let's say for example you want questions on that specific point you are trying to cover, you can do that also with Java. So I can keep this here, and I can mention like here are few more questions you would like to know in regards to breakfast and weight loss. I also sometimes write a sentence. I don't use Jarvis to write every single sentence for me, and I can make it. So you can see how easily I was able to generate both a generic question. For example, I can make this like fake frequently asked questions on weight loss within 3 weeks. I hope 3 weeks, and I can make this as another subheading. And you can see I managed to make a generic question set and also some topical question set with Jarvis. That is how you use questions with Jarvis. Now let's see how we can use Jarvis to answer the question it generated. This is also an interesting one where, for example, we already know Jarvis can write explanation like write me an answer for this, write me explanation. We can use that. For example, I'm coming down to this, and let's see whether why should you eat breakfast. Right, let's see whether without giving any context whether Jarvis figure it out. I'm just keeping the cursor below the question and see whether Jarvis is able to pick up on this question and answer it. For example, what should you eat for breakfast? Well, it's a myth. You can skip breakfast. In reality, skipping breakfast is unhealthy. Instead of keeping, they are packed full of protein. Boiled eggs are not. It's good. Now let's see. Because I didn't give any context, it tries to write something for me. If you're okay with this kind of style, then okay. Now let me try to limit the context. For example, write an answer on why you should eat breakfast. This way I'm specifically saying Jarvis, I want to answer, and the answer should answer why you should eat breakfast, and I'm pressing Control Enter. Now it will try to limit that context. For example, let me finish it so I don't get mixed up. Let me remove the unnecessary one and see. This is the answer. I asked what should you eat for breakfast, and it says the key to a healthy and weight loss friendly breakfast is to make sure it has both protein and carbs. Don't skip breakfast. Eat something like eggs with vegetable for healthy start for your day. So you can see, understand that it's a perfect answer for the question I asked. Let's see whether I can generate another question here. Why it is important to drink plenty of water throughout the day. Now I can use another command which I like. For example, I see why it is important to drink plenty of water throughout the day. The reason it is important to drink plenty of water is because, and now I'm just basically asking it to answer, but rather than putting that into a question format, I'm just typing my thought and see whether Jarvis can finish up that thought as an answer. Let's see whether that works. The reason it is important to drink plenty of water because water helps in flushing out toxins from body. Water is vital for every organ and cells in your body because it transports nutrition. If you don't, and it just goes away because I have set it up in long, but this answer is perfect for this question. So that is all the ways you can generally use questions. And not only that, it will work with that super focused questions also. For example, this question where I'm just talking about one particular niche, I can use this also to answer with Jarvis. For example, let's see whether it able to understand without me giving any context. I'm just going to keep it in medium so it just don't go anywhere. and clicking on compass. The question is, what is the myth about skipping breakfast and why it is not true? Let's see whether it can figure it. It's a bit tricky question, not the straightforward one. Hopefully it can figure it out. For some reason it's just loading. Let's see whether it works or not. It's still loading for me. This is the first time it has happened. Let's see. Let me do a refresh. I think hopefully I didn't break Jarvis. Let's see. This was the question. Let me put compose again and let's see. It goes for the answer. I think it's not able to understand that I want to write a question here. Instead, it's trying to generate more questions based on that. So let me give more suggestions for Jarvis to get a better sense of understanding. Like, write why it is. Let me write an answer. Write an explanation. Let's see whether this works. It's different. Explanation why the myth about skipping breakfast is not true. Let's see whether this works. I am giving a specific guideline for it to follow now. Let's see. It is a myth that one can skip breakfast while still maintaining healthy lifestyle. Good one. Skipping breakfast makes it much more likely to crave later in the day, which often translates into eating unhealthy food, consequently gaining fat. Eating breakfast can help you to manage your blood sugar level, decrease frequency of lunch and time. You can see the answer now. It is able to understand what I specifically want and it writes based on that. So that is how you can use this. So you can use on something else also, and you can just write and ask for it. Try to do with compose and you can do it. So let me do this now. It's looking good. Let me make these as h3s so it makes much more sense. So I like to keep the layout when I write the article itself, so I don't get mixed up on different stuff. And let me do these as also h3. So obviously by the time I finish this video, there will be a proper article also where you can actually take this article and publish it out also. So this are proper. So now let's see how we can use JavaScript to explain different section. For example, explain does not need to be just for question. For example, just by asking Jarvis to write something, I can ask, for example, in this case I'm going down, I can just ask like a clueless person, like, explain why sugar affects weight loss. In this case I don't know the reason, I don't know the answer for it. Just explain to me why it affects the weight loss, and I'm asking Jarvis to explain to me. That also it does. For example, it's taking the formatting differently. I should have not bold. Let's see. I don't know where to see make it paragraph. I just copy paste the text. This is a quick hack I like to use and make that. Still it made it into h1. Let's see. I can do that and do this. Okay, you can figure it out. Sugar make you store fat rather than burn it. It slows down your metabolism and makes you want to eat more. Does not. So you can see the explanation it does. It also works for questions, but you not necessarily need to use within this in question context. For example, in the top, let's say for example, explain why you can lose weight within 3 weeks. Just something to give an understanding, and I can do that. This also works like asking for any help. For example, you can see weight loss is most often sought after the weight back on track. In order to be able to lose weight quickly, you have to make sure that you take care of your health and don't deprive yourself for too long. If you can do that, you should have no problem meeting your goals within 3 weeks. So you can understand, I asked Jarvis to explain a scenario for me, and it understands that context and goes out into explaining that simple stuff for me in a different language. So that is how you use explain concept within your Jarvis. The next one is to write prose. That also works with Jarvis. For example, I like to keep my prose above question just as a personal preference. Let me follow that also here. Where is the fake? Okay, here. And I'm going down, and let's say now I want to Jarvis to list out some pros. I don't think it will be relevant on this article, like pros and cons. Let's see whether it right for me. Right, pros. Let me say write 5 pros on fast weight loss. Let's see whether that works. I'm not totally sure. Let's see for the first with the actual title itself. Just make sure that you mention right, suggest, give me something like that. Write 5 pros on how to lose weight. And this does not make sense as a context, like write 5 pros on how to lose weight in 3 weeks. Not just write 5 pros on why you should, let's see that, why you should lose weight in 3 weeks. Let's see whether that actually makes sense. If it's like a product or a review or something like that, then it makes really easy. For example, I write that and it's coming with healthier and happier you, pro healthier for your body by regulating your body, encourage your living, improves the health style. Okay, not bad, but it's just not the relevant for the context, which because I chose a generic one. But if it's just a product, for example, let me do something else. For example, let me say inside this article I'm talking about water weight loss program section. In this case, I'm just going to cover water weight loss. Let me ask Jarvis to write, give some pros for water weight loss. In this case, write 5 pros on water weight loss, and Jarvis can hopefully do that for me. Let's see. And also in this case, I'm just putting Control Shift Enter, where it will keep the text without deleting and enter the rest of the stuff. For example, it's trying to write a ADA for me, a pass for me. This is not good. Let me rephrase that. Write 5 pros on why water weight loss is good for you. Let's see. And let me do that and press enter. Hopefully this time it will work. Helps you to maintain a healthy lifestyle by encouraging to eat nutritional, make it easier to shed excess fat quickly, promote safe. And let's see whether it can continue this in a bullet format. Let's see whether that works. And you can see it just keeps on going it. So you can see it automatically generated 5 different pros. Sorry, I removed while it was generating. So you can see, I can make this as pro, and automatically it's tried to write some pros. For example, water light program pros helps you to maintain a healthy lifestyle by encouraging to eat nutritional food, drink plenty of water, makes it easier to shed excess fat quickly so the weight comes off quickly without sacrificing your health, promotes health safe. So you can see these actually make sense, even though this is a difficult topic to come up with pros and cons. So that is how you use pros with Jarvis. This will really work for product or specific things where you try to write pros and cons, and make sure to you check fact check all these pros if you don't have experience in this field. Now let's see how you can use cons within Jarvis. If I go into the cons section, and inside the cons, now I'm trying to ask Jarvis to write some cons. For example, write 5 cons why water weight loss is bad for your health. Let's see whether it can come up with. I don't have any clue whether it is bad or good. Write 5 cons why water weight loss is bad for your health. Let's see whether it can come up with this thing. Makes it easier to promote safe. So obviously it doesn't bring me any cons, because I think water weight loss is really good. Right. Let me see. I don't giving the correct context. For example, write list of risks for water weight loss. Maybe that will work. Let's see. Write a list of risk for water weight loss. Let's see whether that works. The con does not need to be specifically mentioned. Like now it's giving me much better suggestion. For example, water retention, fatigue, constipation. So let me refresh, undo it, and see whether it can bring something more. And now it's much better. For example, I wish there is a easy way to I go back. Okay, it made it easy. Sorry guys, just getting used to it, the formatting. This is really good. For example, I asked me to generate some cons, but instead of saying it as con, I asked some risk, which is also like con, depending on the subject area, because it does not make mention like I'm writing an article on 5 tips on how to lose weight in 3 weeks. There is no cons, but there is risks. So I mentioned it specifically that, and it came up with water is not always healthy as it you seem. Then you go and try to see. For example, let's see whether it can finish this thread. I'm not sure it can. I'm putting small and I'm putting compose and see whether let to be this is not good. Let's see one more time. Oh, I'm just going to skip that. I don't see what has been unhealthy. Let's see this. Let me, for the sake of it, this keep as this. Not getting good enough sleep can also lead to you. Drinking lot of water might be asserted when drinking too much, or alcohol consumption increases the list. So it's not the perfect, but you still get the point. It tries to bring cons also with Jarvis. It depends on the article you are planning to write. So that is how you write cons. And the final factor, before the final factor, is converting a paragraph into list. That also you can do. For example, I have written this. Let's say, for example, all these are one single paragraph rather than separate one. And I can ask Jarvis to bring a list from this paragraph. For example, write a list or listicles. You can see anything, right? A listicles. If I can just let me keep in and let's see whether it works. Write a list based on about text. Let's see whether that works. Or bullet points, that also will work. Let's see whether you can see now what Jarvis is trying to do is try to convert that paragraph we written into a list. Let me try to something like right. Let's see, convert works better. Convert. I haven't tried honestly this. Let's see, convert about text into a bullet list. Whether this works, this is going to be a new venture for me. Convert about text into a bullet list. Let's see whether that works. It's still loading. Tips for losing weight. Have you been struggling to weigh the key? However, this is irrelevant. Let's see whether it goes up. This is not good actually. Let me refresh that, and it's trying to do the generation conversion, but it's not actually bringing up good results for me. I think I need to this eat regular, combine, eat enough sleep, so it understands my list. So you can use this, like for example, write me, let's see, write bullet points based on above text. by giving some input, and rather than getting the answer back in a paragraph, I'm asking Jarvis to write some bullet points based on that text. So let's see whether this will be ideal solution when you are writing product description. Like you write a great product description and you can use this to get some bullet points also. For example, 3 weeks to renew 5 quick. Now it much more makes sense in this case. Lose weight without sacrificing your sanity, and a topic which we covered in this paragraph. 5 quick tips, another topic which we covered in this paragraph. 3 weeks to renew, another thing. So you can see it is able to understand that text and also makes a bullet point really good tip to use within product description. Actually, let me just quickly do some quick formatting so I don't end up with something messy. And now it's good. Now we come into one of my final one, which is, can Jarvis write conclusion for you? The obvious answer is going to be yes. Let's see whether it works. I'm going to do conclusion heading now and see whether Jarvis understand the focus impact for it. And I'm going to give it longer, and I'm placing the cursor here and just see whether it can understand. There are a couple of other ways also used. You can see now it clearly understands that. For example, in conclusion, I wanted it to write a conclusion for me, and it's actually starting the conclusion saying, in conclusion, losing weight fast is not always the best idea, because when you lose weight quickly, it may come back with it. Keeping a healthy lifestyle, eating nutrition food, exercising regularly, getting sleep, this will be keeping the link below. It just goes something. Let's say this actually started this, but you're not limited to this. You can specifically mention, write a conclusion for, and I can give this also. I think hopefully it can bring. I'm pressing with Control Shift Enter, so that will not remove that text. Let's see. The key to losing weight in 3 weeks is eating food during pregnancy, eating healthy breakfast and life. If you lose weight fast, so be not sure, not the perfect one. Let's see whether write a conclusion for about text. Let's see whether that brings up something else. Let's see. It is important to drink water, exercise regularly, eat healthy breakfast, consider cutting sugar. Sleep is still not perfect. I'm ended up getting, in this case, if I don't, for example, generally when I type that, I will end up with this, but in case if I don't, I will try to build up on my conclusion based on that. In conclusion, losing weight is not, so what I generally would, let's say I didn't receive anything like that, so in that case I would say in conclusion. And let's see whether Jarvis can understand the context now. And just pressing compose after that, like a finishing my thought. What are some important steps? In short, you can use lose weight in, but it will not. Start by tracking how many calories. Next, find out. Think about. So it just try to bring up more creative ways to do this. So in conclusion, this article covered. I just giving some more context. If it's having trouble to understanding, I'm going to keep it medium and press compose, and now it should go and try to do in conclusion, this article covered the best way to lose weight in 3 weeks. Perfect. There are a certain thing that should not be done and others not a perfect one. It was noted that most effective way to lose weight is being by healthy, and you can see generally try to bring up this. So that is how you can go about and just bring a best way to do. And just I can finish off this also like the, I hope this, and let's see whether it can go and finish off this article for me. I hope this, and let's see. This article has left you with information that will help you to aid up with your weight loss goal. Let me finally finish it. If you have enjoyed this article, let's see whether it makes me to clicked on here. I should have clicked here. Okay, I clicked it there, and it's like if you have enjoyed the article, please leave a comment below. The article summarized, so you can see that it just helps me to create conclusion, not just with the basic conclusion format, but also by using other elements within the conclusion. So just I shared like 21 different personal factors I personally use with writing full Jarvis content with it. This is really powerful, guys. I'm not sure how long it's going to be, because it's really easy to write crazy number of articles with this blog post, because generally if I have to write this article without talking to a video, I would have probably have come up with another like 1500 words article or something within 30 minutes. Like it has taken like 1 hour right now, but I was explaining everything for you guys so you can understand the potential from it. From here, what I would suggest, use this. You also write something in the middle. You use completing your thought feature to complete that. After that, make sure that it's readable, it is relevant to your article audience, and do a plagiarism check. Just make sure everything is correct. Do a fact check that everything you talked is actually factually true, and finally publish and get started on creating new article. So I hope this video was really helpful for anyone who's interested in Jarvis boss mode, or just in conversion. Jarvis AI, the old name was conversion. I hope this was helpful. If you have any more questions or doubt, feel free to reach out me and I will help you out. Once again, thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a great day. Cheers.